Hi, everyone. I am Andrea Cassidy, and welcome to Ask the Midwife. It is a new program that we've started at the Midwifery Collective of Essex County, where I am a midwife and the owner of the practice. I've been a midwife in Windsor, Essex County since 2005, I think, or 2006. Anyhow, for a while. And I'm also a lactation consultant. And we started this program as an opportunity to ask us questions. This is educational. This is not to replace any medical advice. It's not considered advice of any kind, actually. It's just an educational opportunity. And I'm here to answer questions. So today, our topic is common breastfeeding concerns. So if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to type them in, and I will do my very best to answer them. I am new at doing the video thing, so you'll have to be a little patient with me if it takes me a couple of minutes to figure that out. I see that we have some people that are viewing tonight already. Welcome, welcome, and please feel free to type in any questions you have. Next week as well, we will have another Ask the Midwife again on Wednesday at 6 o'clock, and that week our midwife will be Corey, and she's going to be talking about common myths about midwifery, and she's also going to give you an opportunity to ask questions about genetic screenings that happens in pregnancy. So that'll be really lovely. And last week, Jess, one of our midwives, talked about home birth and choice of birthplace. And that video is on our webpage. So it's the Midwifery Collective of Essex County. So you can have a look at her live video from last week. And so I think what I want to do is start with talking about some of the most common concerns I have that I hear, anyhow, about people's breastfeeding. So I think one of the biggest concerns I hear about is, do I have enough to feed my baby? I think that happens a lot. That, do I have enough? How do I have enough? How do I know I have enough milk for my baby? How do I know that I am transferring the milk from my breast into my baby's mouth and into my baby's stomach? So there are some tips that I can share with you. So, when we talk about breastfeeding, I think one of the really important things we should clarify right from the get go is that welcome. I see we have some new people joining us. Welcome, welcome. I just want to remind you that you can type in any questions you have, and hopefully I can find them. Yes, I think I can. And if anybody wanted to type just a hi, that would be really great. That way I know I'm looking in the right spot. I greatly appreciate that. But you can type in any of your questions about breastfeeding. So I wanted to start with how do I know my baby's getting enough food? So when we talk about breastfeeding, here's one of the um, big mistakes we make at first is that breastfeeding happens in stages. It is not right from the get go the same thing as it is breastfeeding a 1 minute old baby, breastfeeding a 1 week old baby, a 2 week old, a 3 month old, a 6 month old, a 12 month old baby. These are different, very different. So I want to talk about the first couple of days. In the first couple of days, we make what's called colostrum. Colostrum is considered like liquid gold. It's incredible. It has the highest amount of our antibodies, then it's higher than milk itself, breast milk. So antibodies, let me just give you a little short history on how brilliant our breast milk is. Antibodies are like protector cells that our body makes. So they're memory cells. So, for example, if you ever had chicken pox or had the vaccine to protect you from chicken pox, your body has made memory cells. So if you ever walk into a place and get exposed to chicken pox, your body's going to go, oh, I know that virus. Let's get out those antibodies that protect us against chickenpox, and our body gets flooded with that. Well, so does our breast milk. When we've been exposed, we flood our milk with that same antibody to protect our babies. When babies are first born, they haven't been exposed to any infections. Ideally, they haven't been exposed to any infections, and therefore they come without antibodies. So we, as their moms, we create their antibody protection for them based on what we can put in our milk. And the most vulnerable is the first few days of life. That's where the colostrum becomes called liquid gold. And part of the reason we call it gold is because that's actually the color of it. It's a gold color. Human milk is white, like normal cow milk. It looks like that. But our initial first 3 to 5 days milk is yellow. It's gold. It's thick. It's sticky. And it's very, very small amounts. So commonly people will say to me, I'm not making anything. I have nothing to feed my baby, so I need to supplement. It's because the amount of colostrum is a really small amount. So it's really hard to see. It comes out in droplets. Occasionally, we'll see a mom who makes a huge amount of colostrum. So one of the big mistakes that happens is women will try to pump colostrum. If you try to use a breast pump and you pump colostrum, almost always, if you get any, it'll be droplets around the bottle. Like they'll just hang on the window like raindrops on a windowsill. They'll just be little droplets because it's such a small amount. So if you look at my spoon here, this is a teaspoon. This is a total of 5 mils. That is considered an average feed of colostrum. So how is that enough for a baby? Well, when babies are born, their stomach is about this size, the size of a marble. So if you think about this 5 mil, this tablespoon, not teaspoon, tablespoon, this tablespoon will fill this marble. So it's actually very compatible. So this is plenty of food for a baby. It can take babies a very long time to get this small amount of colostrum out of your breast because they don't know what they're doing and you don't know what you're doing. This notion that babies come out and they just do their thing. I've been at a lot of births in my life, and yes, that does happen sometimes, but it doesn't happen all the time. Breastfeeding is hard work. They did a study and they asked women, what was the hardest part of your whole birthing experience? Like, so your pregnancy, your birth, your postpartum. Women, 80% of women said it was the postpartum, and they said it was because no one prepared them for how much work it is. I will prepare you today by telling you learning to breastfeed successfully can take 2 to 3 weeks. It can take a really long time to get there. Oh, yay, people are saying hi. Thank you, thank you. I can see that. I know where the comments are. Thank you. Sorry, I'm 55 years old. I am not amazing at technology, although I do know a lot about breastfeeding. So if you bear with me, I will certainly help you. So type in any questions you have and I will keep working on them, okay? All right, let's go back to the colostrum. So sometimes the advice that is given to us, so about pumping and about how much we should feed our babies and how often we should feed our babies and what we should expect from our babies, is about babies that are over a week old and that are now drinking milk. Babies who drink colostrum are in a very different position in their lives. So that advice doesn't follow. There's a different set of advice when we're dealing with colostrum. So with colostrum, cluster feeding is actually a brilliant, brilliant plan. So cluster feeding basically means that babies eat, and then they 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 pass out and sleep for a big chunk of time because they're exhausted. So babies do that very commonly, and the reason they're doing that, our bodies are made so brilliantly because they're increasing our hormones. And the hormones in our body, one of them in particular is called prolactin. That's the one that sends the message to our brain to say, make some milk. Now, because our bodies were made so brilliantly, One feed does not increase your milk supply. It takes about 3 to 5 days to make a high enough, consistent level of prolactin for your milk to come in and also for your milk to increase when your baby needs an increase in milk supply down the road. So 3 to 5 days. That's how long it's going to take for you to switch from colostrum to human milk. So in that time, your baby's going to be on your breast all the time. And that's where that baby should be, because your hormones are going to get triggered and your milk's going to come in faster, and it's going to come in with a nice production because your hormone levels are going to be high. And also because this is the perfect food, they digest it quickly. This is also why they come back again quickly. So we are often told breastfeed your baby every 2 to 3 hours. It's not a bad gauge, but it is problematic when it's used like somehow our babies are supposed to follow that. Our bodies don't follow that. Our babies aren't going to all follow that either. And the 2 to 3 hours is really about milk, when milk is in, and that's how often they nurse. So it's very common with colostrum that babies are nursing much more often. Okay? It's not a sign that you don't have enough. It's a sign that your baby's actually doing their job. Now, here's another pitfall that often happens when moms are dealing with this. Jillian has a question, or a comment, I think. With my first 2 kids, I didn't have much professional support. Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. I think it's hard to come by here. And produced not enough and barely enough, respectively. What are the best natural ways to increase supply to make sure there's enough for the baby? Brilliant question. So one of the best ways is that cluster feeding. It's getting your body to produce those hormones. Your baby is better than any pump. Pumps don't work well for colostrum because remember, it's drops, it's dribbles. Pumps also don't work well. Here's a really interesting reason why pumps don't work well, even for increasing milk when it's milk supply. The hormones that we produce for breast milk, one of them is called oxytocin. You probably have often heard of that. We use it for inducing women. It works, it's a hormone that causes smooth muscles to contract. Our uterus is a smooth muscle, so it causes contractions. There are smooth muscles in our breast around our milk ducts. So oxytocin contracts and forces the milk out. Oxytocin also has the wonderful effect of bringing us a sense of love and bonding to our baby. This is why we call it the love hormone. So oxytocin increases when we hold our baby and say, oh, my beautiful baby, I love you. And our oxytocin levels go high. So when we put our breast pump on us, we go, oh dear God, am I done yet? I don't like pumping. So our oxytocin levels don't go as high as it does when we breastfeed our babies. Stanford University has a great video on how to hand express. What they said at Stanford from their studies is that women who pump and hand express make up to, now let me think it, I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this, 80% more milk. Because when we hand express after we pump, we have skin to skin. So our hand on our breast is the skin to skin. Oxytocin levels go up with skin to skin. So we're always telling moms, take your baby's clothes off when you breastfeed. Do skin to skin when you breastfeed because oxytocin levels go up. And when you do hand expression, you're going to trigger a higher level of oxytocins. The other thing I think is when we do hand expression, we think, oh, I hope I make enough milk for my baby. I hope this works. I really want to fill this bottle. So that makes another way for our levels to go higher. So Jillian, to answer your question, one of the really important things is working with your body's hormones. So trying to work with the natural ways to trigger those hormones, which is our skin to skin, loving up our baby. We talk to women who have preterm babies and they have to pump. We tell them pumping in front of your baby or putting a photo up of your baby and pumping because we think, oh, There's my baby. Oxytocin levels higher, prolactin levels higher, more milk. So that becomes really important, knowing how your hormones work. I think another natural way to get our hormones up is goes back to that frequent, often feeding. That will increase our, and I'm going to talk to you about a latch at some point today as well, okay? So that I can help you guys with that first latches. But I want to go back to the point I was going to raise about how we can avoid a really significant pitfall that happens in the early days of breastfeeding. So we make this colostrum for the 3 to 5 days, and then we start to make milk. It goes from yellow to yellow whitish, and then to full blown whitish. When our milk supply goes up, when our milk comes in, so we go from our baby's stomach being this size to being this size. So around day 3 to 5, our baby's tummies move to this. So they're taking about 5 mils here, and here they take about 25 mils, they think, around here. So one of the biggest pitfalls is that when we're at this point, we think we don't have any colostrum because it's really hard to see because it's drops. So we supplement our babies. We give them some formula. So bottles are really fast. And before we know it, that baby's had an ounce and a half, 2 ounces, 30, 50, 60 mils. So we've stretched their stomach this big. They're not likely that we're supplementing them 5 to 15 mils. So now, say on day 1, our 1-day-old baby, we supplemented once, their stomach's stretched. Their next feed, their stomach is this size. You're making this much. You're out of sync. So your baby eats from you and says, that's not enough. I'm really still hungry. This isn't satisfying me. So then we supplement again. And then we supplement again. Okay? So that's an important pitfall to stay in sync with your baby. Absolutely, there are times when we have to supplement babies. There are medical reasons that, for example, formula can be a life-saving tool for a baby who a mom is too sick, or the baby's has sugar levels that are really out of control and we need to supplement them. There are times when it's appropriate. So what I'm talking about here are healthy, straightforward, really no big concerns here, okay? So we go from this to this, okay? This is day 3 to day 5, milk comes in. And then around day 10, we go up to this size, to the egg size. So at the egg size, these babies are having about 60 mils, about 2 ounces. So again, it's not uncommon to over supplement a baby if you supplement them too much. And so we've stretched their stomach here. So maybe we're making this much, and then the next feed the baby's not happy, and the next feed the baby's not happy. So then we're out of sync. And what happens when we come out of sync is that, remember, it's hormone driven. So if you don't empty your breast, and if you don't do it in such a way that stimulates some oxytocin, the hormone prolactin isn't going to get triggered and isn't going to increase, which isn't going to, your body's going to get the message, oh, I'm making enough, you don't need any more, or you don't need any, I can stop making it. And so then our milk supply, that gap gets hard to close. So the best thing is not to let that gap happen. I will tell you that gap happens a lot, and I work with women to fix it all the time. Okay? So don't feel like I had the gap, I can't ever fix it. You can absolutely fix it. It's like everything, right? We tell our kids this all the time. It's easier not to have a problem, right? To avoid the problem than to have the problem. So I'm hoping to give you some advice to avoid some of that problems, right? So one of the other things that is really important when we talk about, is my baby getting enough? How do I know that? So there's a couple of ways you'll know that. Just like you and I, if we drink, sorry, I'm going to take a drink. We'll eventually have to go pee. So when our babies are drinking from our breasts, they will pee. The first day that they're born, their first pee is really just about the plumbing working, because that void is often from fluid that's from being inside you. But after day one, those pees only come from the fluid we provide them with. So babies are supposed to pee how old they are. A 1 day old baby needs to pee minimally. So more is never a problem. It's less or bare minimum. Sometimes it's a problem, but at least once. Day two, 2 pees. Day three, 3 pees. Day four, 4 pees, up to day 6. So on day 6, they should be peeing 6 or more pees, and then it kind of goes that way forward. Really, from there on, it's usually about 6 or more pees. Okay. So there are a lot of really great apps for charting this. I promise you, when you get home, you are not going to remember what time that baby peed at, if that baby peed was 2 days ago or today, because you're exhausted. So use your apps. Pen and paper work great. The Windsor Essex Public Health, our local public health, created a really nice app called When You Need It. So it's a free app that you can download, and it's a breastfeeding app. It's one of those, you click right side, you click left side, so it can help you remember which breast you ended off on the last time. But even more importantly, you can track pees and poops as well as how often you've been breastfeeding. So that's a really nice thing to get ahead of time, okay? Because when and if you go back, if you're having a hospital birth, or if you're having a home birth with a midwife, your healthcare providers will ask you, how often has the baby peed in the last 24 hours? And you'll be like, I don't know. So use your apps, okay? That'll make a big difference in knowing. Okay. Now, when we talk about poops as a guide for eating enough, it is a little different. The number of stools isn't as accurate as the number of pees. So we generally say the number of stools are about 2 a day, but it can really vary a little bit because breast milk is the perfect food. So sometimes babies will be puddle makers, right? So they'll have, the first poop they make is called meconium, and it's really from all the stuff that was inside your amniotic fluid. So I'm a midwife, so sometimes I'm a little bit more comfortable with being a little gross. So I'm going to tell you that amniotic fluid has babies' skin cells that come off in it, their hair that comes off in it, and that's kind of the stuff that makes up the meconium. And so when they have that first poop, it can be like a puddle, like literally a big, huge puddle. And babies can have a few of those puddles, and they've cleaned out their system, and so that they could skip a day. And that's not necessarily a sign that there's a problem. It can be, though, if a baby's not pooping, the baby's not peeing the minimum amount, and the baby's sleepy and lethargic, that baby's probably not okay, right? Versus a baby who's peeing way more than the minimum amount, is waking up and screaming their head off, and is very alert and had made a lot of puddles, and that baby's probably fine. And the weight checks will help you with that too. So when they check the weight of your baby, here's a little tip that's really a nice thing. Yourself or your partner, whoever's at the birth with you, if you have somebody there, have them take a picture of the scale, like of the day they're born, of the scale at the moment they're born. So have them take it in pounds and in grams, because healthcare providers work by grams. Really, I know they should translate evenly, but depending on the app or the site you use, they don't actually always translate perfectly. So it's nice to have a picture of both. And every time your baby gets weighed in those first couple of weeks, take a picture. Say to them, can I take a picture of that weight? Because I cannot tell you the number of times I'll have moms come home and they have had another weight check and they're tired, and I'll say, so what did your baby weigh at the last visit? They're like, nobody told me. I don't know. Take a picture, okay? That way you can keep track of it yourself. And you're going to feel more reassured, because we often see a different healthcare provider at these visits too. And there's charts and they keep track of the records and they are clear that they translate the records from provider to provider, but you are the parent. This is your baby. This is information that you should know. So don't be afraid to ask that question. Keep track of your baby's weight yourself, okay? Now, the color of baby's poop also tells us how babies are doing. So when they're first born, it's meconium. It's black, black, black. Remember I said where that's made up from, the stuff inside. So when you start to get colostrum and they start to eat on colostrum, and then often when it starts with the first milk as well, so that's half colostrum, half milk, so it's kind of a yellow, whitish, the poop changed to a green color. Okay, so it's usually meconium for the first 3 or 4 days, and then it turns to a green color, and then it turns to yellow seedy. If by day 5 your baby's poop is still this color, there is a serious problem about this baby not eating well. There might be a structural issue as well, and that's why you're going to have several healthcare providers checking in on you and asking you, what color was the last poop? What color was the last poop? It's because this is a sign that not only is their system working, but that they're actually getting the milk that you're trying to feed them, that's transferring. It doesn't get to yellow seedy unless they get milk in their system. It just doesn't. So that's a really helpful way to switch over to that. Okay. I just want to check for a second and see. Oh, hi, Christy. Oh, hi, Maria and Tina. There's like lots of people I've been involved in their care before. That's just wow. Okay, I was super nervous about doing this. I just felt so much calmer because I feel like there are people that I adore around me. Thank you guys for saying hi. Okay, so another really common problem in not knowing if your baby is getting enough is not understanding what a baby looks like when they're getting full. Okay, so I call it milk drunk. I don't know if there's probably way better terms, but when a baby comes off the breast, I mean, their eyes are closed, they've been snuggled with their mom, they're in the happiest place they can be, and then you can lift up their arm and it just drops down. It's just like they are stuffed, like they had Christmas dinner. They are full, and so they will often come off themselves, but not always. So that's one that's often to tell women, oh, they'll come off themselves, and they're like, they never come off. No, because it's their happy place, and your breast is never empty. So they did an ultrasound study, and they said, how much milk does a mom transfer? Within the first 5 minutes, babies get 50% of the milk that's sitting in your breast. 50%. 50% of your milk is transferred to that baby within 5 minutes. Another 26. So on average, babies take about 76% of the milk that's in your breast in a feed. So the other 26% takes about another 15 to 20 minutes to transfer to the baby. So if you think of a sponge that's been dunked in a bucket, and you take it out and it's dripping, and you squeeze it. The first squeeze, it's just like whoosh. That's the first 5 minutes. Your breasts are very full from the other feeds and from having letdowns, and so that first squeeze is that first oxytocin surge. So it usually doesn't take very long after a few seconds that our oxytocin levels surges up. It contracts the smooth muscles around the milk ducts and pushes out the milk, and we get that sponge squeeze. And then if you think after that first squeeze of that sponge, it's not dry, there's still moisture in it, but when you squeeze it the second time, it comes, but it's not as much. It's slower, it's less, right? And that's why babies nurse longer and stay on it. Some moms are really fast feeders, right? Their babies are done within 10 minutes. Like they're stuffed, passed out, can't take another. And that's moms, I think, I don't have any research that supports this, but To me, it's not, those moms always say, oh, I make so much milk. And it's often that they make a lot of milk, but it's also that they have really high oxytocin surges. So the oxytocin does that squeeze and then does another really good squeeze, and it just pushes that out, that milk really fast. And so those babies are gulping, 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 taking in a lot of milk really fast, and then they're full. Which brings me to another piece about kind of gassy babies and burping. When we breastfeed babies, we need to know that we should burp our babies, but there's no air in breasts. We got no air in there. So, in theory, our baby may not burp. The reason they do burp is because when they're on the breast and it's coming fast, they're gulping, they're going fast, and they break the latch with their mouth because they're like, oh, that went fast, right? And then they go back. And that kind of breaking and going on is where they get the air. So don't be surprised, like every time I burp my baby, I get nothing. That's okay. Doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong, that you don't know how to burp your baby. It just means that you probably are lucky and don't have a crazy fast letdown that your baby's having to gulp like crazy. So they're not getting a ton of air. Okay, so another really important piece about knowing if your babies get enough is watching how they eat. So babies who are on the nipple of the breast, they are using the hard palate. So if you feel the roof of your mouth right behind your teeth and your gum line, that's the hard palate. That's where soothers go. So when a baby sucks on a soother, they're using the tip of their tongue and they're using their hard palate to hold it in. Soothers actually make breastfeeding a little harder because soothers, unlike our breast that's attached to our body, it has nothing attached behind it. So they have to use the tip of their tongue in a very different way to hold it in their mouth. And when babies breastfeed, if they go straight on, they will bring the breast right here to the hard palate. Tip of the tongue will be used, and the gum line will be used. That's where you get cracked, you get bleeding, you want to cry. Like that's the hard work of breastfeeding, is trying to avoid the cracked and sore nipples, and it's about not breastfeeding here. So if you feel with your tongue the roof of your mouth and you go way back to as far back as your tongue can go, up there is your soft palate. Now your soft palate and your tongue work in tandem to create a wave that massages the breast to get the milk out. So we think about it, it's up here. It is not straight here, it's up. So when a baby goes on your breast, they have to go up. Well, you cannot bend your breast that way, I'm sorry to say, but you most certainly can bend your baby. Okay, so that's where the proper latch comes in. Okay, so when we try and put babies on, if we put them on straight, we're going to get the hard palate. Also, often moms will do this piece. They'll breastfeed their babies with their head turned on their back. So they don't get a deep latch. They don't get enough in their breast, so they can't bring it up. So what happens is, if you think of me laying on my back, turning my head, I'm not going to get deep. If I turn my whole body and just have to open my mouth, I'm going to get way more breast in my mouth. I'm going to get a deeper latch. I'm going to empty that breast, and I'm going to transfer that milk so much better when I do that. Okay? So when your baby's breastfeeding, they say tummy to mommy, belly to belly. There's lots of ways to create that. There's football hold, there's cross laying, there's laid back nursing. That's where the baby kind of just lays on your belly and they lay belly to belly. There's a bunch of different ways you can accomplish that, but they really are all the same kind of thing. All of them are about that baby not having to reach. And it's the same thing too when they come to your breast. If you have them down too low in your lap, they have to reach up. They're not going to have a great latch. If you have them on a cushion that's way too high and they have to reach down, it's not going to be a good latch. So don't think about where your baby's neck is, that they're not reaching, that they are turned. So their only job is open their mouth. Okay? And then when their baby opens their mouth, sorry, I want to check for questions. Yeah, sorry, I didn't do a great job checking for questions. I am going to do that. So Jillian has another question. How do you know baby is getting hind milk and not just fore milk? Is this dependent on the latch? I love that question. So and then I'm going to go back to how we latch babies. Hind milk and fore milk is been researched a lot, and there's actually some change in the research in the last few years. Although it's real that there is hind milk and fore milk, we no longer actually concern about ourselves. Because what they did is they did studies over 24 hours, and they said the composition of it was the exact same amount that babies got, whether they were 5-minute feeders or 20-minute feeders. So when I started as a midwife and then as a lactation consultant, there was a lot of this, your baby has green poop, so that's higher sugar content, so that's the fore milk. So the fore milk is more it was thought that that sponge, think of that sponge again, that comes out of the bucket and you squeeze, so that first milk that's sitting in the breast that comes out on that first one is a thinner milk. That's the fore milk. So the sugar content is higher than that, and it looks more clear color. And that is all true. And the hind milk is the milk that's sitting behind here. And what happens is the fat content on your milk ducts, it kind of gets stuck on the milk ducts. And then as the milk comes out, it pulls more of those fat content, those fat cells out. And so that's a richer, creamier milk is the hind milk. What we have since learned, though, is that because our breasts are always filling and emptying, that the actual fat content throughout works itself out in 24 hours. So we don't actually worry about it very much anymore. So there is a thought that babies sleep better if they get more of the hind milk, that they will get fatter if they get more of the hind milk. It's not been proven to be true. So we don't actually hold on to that very much anymore. It's more about, are we consistently responding to our baby's cues? Is the latch good? Is the transferring of the milk good? Those are all the more important pieces. So now we know that most babies who are fussy, not gaining well, not doing well, it's because there's a latch problem almost always. It's not really about what kind of milk they're getting. It's about that they're not transferring the milk as well as they should be. So it goes back to that latch. So I want to go back to how we know our baby's on the right way. So remember, don't make your baby turn their head, their neck. They're not reaching. They shouldn't reach however they're going. They should only have to open their mouth. So when we talk back to that spot up here that we're reaching with the breast, as opposed to the front where we don't empty the breast well, we have to go up. It's people say the J, right? Instead of straight, it's kind of an upward motion. So your breast can't do that upward motion, but your baby can. And the way the baby does that is if they come straight, they don't create that. But you angle that whole baby's body, you just create the J. So if I do it this way, straight on, they're going to the hard pellet. Angle them, the nipple gets to go up to that spot there. So we do that by having really good control over them. We try really hard when they go on that their chin goes in first. So often people worry about babies breathing when they're on. If we get a good latch, Not all the time. This is the other thing that I think is really important to know. Not no one's advice is perfect. That myself included. It is suggestions. You know this baby, well, not my doll, but your baby. You guys know your baby the best. You are the expert on your baby. Trust what you know, unless you know for sure that you're not doing it right. Like if you feel like, I know this isn't working well, my baby's yelling all the time, they're not gaining weight, well, then you know there's a problem, which proves the point that you're the expert of your baby. Really, you are, right? Good professional support is super important. But I think what happens a lot is every single person you see has a different piece of advice for you. And probably some of the advice I'm giving you today is different than what somebody else said to you. Pick and choose. Pick and choose. If it makes sense for you, then it's the right advice, right? There is really only one family that matters, and that's yours. And you figure out what works for your family. One of the number one things I do when I talk to moms about breastfeeding is I try very hard. I think as a midwife, I feel like a big part of my job has been telling women that they matter too and that they should take care of themselves too. Breastfeeding doesn't work unless we take care of the mom. The mom is the key to it all. We focus on the baby. And I know they're beautiful and they're cute and they're vulnerable and we adore them and we don't want them to lose weight and we don't want them to get dehydrated, but we also don't want the mom to be an exhausted mess who's sobbing and can't take care of her other children and can't, isn't okay. So look for the balance that works for you and your family. I really like to say that living in the gray is the best place to be. When we look at things kind of black and white, it doesn't always work because every family dynamic is different, right? And every mom's breast is different and every baby's different. Any of you moms, which I know there's a bunch of you on there who've had other babies, you know that each one of your children is different. Like you think, I got this, I know how to do this, we've done it this way. And then you have another child and you're like, okay, so that doesn't work because this child does not want to do it that way. But what is consistent is that your family will inform your baby of how to work within your family structure, okay? So have confidence in that you are the expert on your baby. Okay? Us lactation consultants, midwives, physicians, nurses, we have a lot of knowledge to share. But we are not the experts on your baby. Okay. Sorry, I keep trying to tell you about how to latch that baby and I keep going off on tangents. So when we try and get that angle, we were talking about that angle, right? The way you get that angle, it has a lot to do with babies' bums. So I know that sounds silly, but the way you latch that baby's head has a lot to do with how that baby's bum. So if we leave that baby, we put them on and we're not supporting their bum, they're falling down like this. So honestly, the strongest muscle in their entire body when they're first born is their jaw muscle. So if they're falling down, they are going to latch onto your nipple and go, I'm falling, grab the nipple, and you are going to cry. Don't do that. Hold that baby's bum up, okay? Hold that baby's bum up. Don't let them fall down and grab a hold of your nipple. That is an unpleasant experience, okay? So the way you support them, nursing pillows, blankets, your legs, I don't care, just your arm. But my least favorite, to be honest, when you're learning is your arms. Yeah, arms should be part of the work, but it shouldn't be the whole work. Because what happens is, I see a lot of moms get their babies on well. They do a good first latch, and then they're like, I don't know why it always hurts. Everyone says my latch looks good. And usually it's because it falls apart into the latch after you do the first latch. You're like super careful, you put that baby on, and then you just had, a 20-hour birth, even a 2-hour birth. You're still birthed a human being. you're exhausted. You might have stitches. Like it's a lot. You're tired. And so your body, and you probably, like lots of women, you did this. You brought your breast to the baby instead of the baby to the breast. And so you're sitting and then you have your hand over like this and your shoulders kinked and you're like, oh, I'm so uncomfortable. And then you like do this and you move, or your arm starts to slouch. And then that baby starts to fall down and grab your nipple. And you may not even notice until you finish the feed. And you're like, why am I so sore? It's not because of how you're doing it, the initial latch. It's usually 5 minutes into it. So have an armchair, have your arms resting on it. Put a bunch of pillows under your arms. Don't make your body do this, right? Especially not leaning over. You're going to kill yourself. You're going to be too sore. Support your body really well. So a way I know when you're well supported is when we have this baby on, I'll often say to women, take a breath and let your shoulders go. And their baby shouldn't move. If they take a breath and let their shoulders go and their baby moves down and slouches and because their arms finally relax, well, then their baby and their arms aren't well supported. You should be able to take a breath and relax and your baby doesn't move anywhere. They should just stay right there because you're well supported, your body's well supported. So remember that. If you're having a hospital birth, even if you're having a home birth, bring some pillows, really, or buy some pillows if it's a home birth. Hospitals have wonderful hospital pillows because they're plastic covered so that they are wonderful to wipe for infectious control, but you should bring pillows to breastfeed with. Don't bring them in a white pillowcase because that's the color of all the hospital's pillowcases. Bring them in something bright and colorful, but bring some pillows to support your arms and to support your baby. A breastfeeding pillow are sometimes useful. I am not a huge fan on breastfeeding pillows. What they often do is the opposite of what you want. They're round and they come around here and they roll in. And so you put your baby on it and they fall down into the hole. And so then your baby's reaching up. Remember that neck angle thing, which makes the latch really crummy. And then they start to fall off. You're always pulling the breastfeeding pillow back and it's falling off. There's a new one on the market that has a clip on the side. So I thought that was pretty smart, that new invention, because it keeps those breastfeeding pillows from falling off you. So if you're looking to buy one, I would look for the ones with the clip because in my experience, the other ones fall off. So I want to talk about that positioning of that baby. I know I didn't finish that yet. So when we put that baby on and we try and create that angle, it has a lot to do with tucking that bum in towards you. See, when you move that baby's bum, that whole upper body shifts. When you push on the back of the shoulders and the back of the head shifts. This is doll, so this is way too much shifted. But the chin will go in first. So if I put my hands around this baby, and then I pull the bum in, and I push on that neck and the back and the shoulders, then the chin's going to go in first. And I'm going to get the nipple up to that spot I said, that J spot, rather than the hard pellet. And you are going to save yourself from being cracked. So when you're breastfeeding and it doesn't feel right, what we used to tell, this is another thing that you'll hear a lot in the hospitals. They'll say, if you don't have a good latch, break the latch, take the baby off. Break the latch, take the baby off. The latest research has told us that's actually not great advice, and I've given that advice to a bunch of people over the years, and if you're on today and I gave you that advice, I'm really sorry because it was the right advice at that time, but it's not the right advice anymore. What we've learned is that on and off, on and off, on and off, it actually causes the most damage to the nipples. This is where we're causing the cracks and the bleeding. So instead, we want to adjust the latch and try and fix it rather than take the baby off. So I often use the analogy of teaching a child to ride a two-wheeler bike. So put your child on a two-wheeler bike and they're starting to fall and you go, get off the bike, get off the bike. Okay, now get back on and try again. Okay, oh, you're wobbling, get off the bike, try back again. And That doesn't work. Instead, when they're on the two-wheeler and they're starting to wobble, you go, whoa, 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 whoa. Let me just push you here a little bit. No, no, here. Oh, there we go. We got it now. Same thing when you're breastfeeding. Adjust. So I kind of say adjust, adjust, adjust. And if it's not okay, then take them off. Okay? Try several times to adjust. So one of the best adjustments is pulling the bum in and pushing on the shoulder blades and the back of the head. It's that angle, and you can use this part of your arm here to pull the bum in. In this hand, when you put this hand on your breast, okay, so you want to take a bite of a sandwich, okay? My mouth goes this way, so I'm going to squish the sandwich that's too big this way so I can take a bite. Well, when the baby's coming on your breast like this, their mouth is this way. So I don't take my sandwich and squish it like this to put it in my mouth. I squish it like this. When I'm going to try and put it on a baby's, put my breast in the baby's mouth that's going this way, I need to squish my breast to go this way. Not like this. That's the wrong way. So when we do that, we take like a letter U, because that's the same way as the baby's mouth. I'm matching the baby's mouth. I'm squishing it the way the baby's mouth is. So follow wherever the angle of the mouth is. That's how you're going to get your breast the right size to help fit. Okay, I want to just check again about questions. Okay. I think that the other really important thing about positioning babies is footstools. Sounds silly, but it's really important. Making the mom comfortable, the chair you use, and a footstool can be a laundry basket with a pillow. You don't have to go buy a footstool, like a box with a blanket over it. It's like something comfortable is nice, but okay, so how am I going to show this? Okay, this is my foot. Here's a footstool. When you put the middle of your foot against a stool, not on top of it like you're laying down and resting your feet, but rather against it, you're going to shift your whole body back. So when we push against something, we shift back. And when we shift back, our baby falls into us. And when they fall into us, they get a deeper latch. And the other thing that's really nice about that is when we shift ourselves back, if we have stitches in our vagina from an episiotomy, a tear, whatever, if you have stitches down there, you get off of it. You kind of tilt your body off your perineum. You have to be really kind to your perineum. I know it goes back to the same thing over and over again. You have to take care of yourself. You really have to take care of you. So I only have a couple minutes left today, but I want to teach something that I've been teaching lately, which is called, it's a form of meditation or mindfulness that I've been taking courses in that, and I really like it. So when we breastfeed and our baby's screaming their head off and we're nervous and we're stressed and we're concerned, so either before we get them on or even after you get them on, I really, really believe that moms are incredible people. Like you guys are the superheroes. You really, really are. And we need to take care of ourselves and not always just everybody else. We need to give ourselves some moments. And so this is a really simple thing. They've studied, mindfulness now has become really well researched to the point that the Ministry of Health, OHIP, is actually paying for people to take meditation and mindfulness classes, which is really interesting because stress is huge. We're learning that stress has all kinds of effects. So they're paying for people to take that because it's researched and it's effective. The latest research around that is a form of mindfulness with self-compassion, being kind to ourselves. They said that when you join the two together, the effects of it is much higher for relieving stress. And in my experience of working with women for a really long time, self-care and self-kindness and time for ourselves is something that we really, really often need to remind women to do. I know I need reminders to do that. I don't always do it. So this mindfulness practice is very simple. It's 3 deep breaths. That's all it is. And we all know 3 deep breaths work. Here's the little shift on it, is that when you take your breath in, this is the self-compassion part. We take our breath in, we think of something that's compassionate to ourselves. So when we're breastfeeding and we're stressed, we're like, you take your breath in and it's like, I'm doing the best I can. I'm being the best mom I can, right? Breastfeeding is hard. It's just acknowledging, right? And then the breath out is letting out this frustration. Like you can breathe out, I'm going to breathe out my frustration. So we can take three breaths together while we're mindfully breastfeeding, okay? So you put your baby on, or before you put your baby on, wherever that moment falls, and you take a breath in. And when you breathe in, you think, I'm doing the best I can. I'm being the best mom I can. And you breathe out, stress is going away. And then you breathe in, I'm being the best mom I can. And you breathe out all your stress. And then you take one last breath in, I'm being the best mom I can. And you breathe out stress. And you shift. You shift in yourself. You give yourself a moment of kindness. And then your baby will feed better, because your baby feels that calmness. And we're able to breastfeed our babies better because we're taking care of ourselves. So if you get anything from tonight, and for all you wonderful moms who I know, I send you all kinds of wonderful love and kindness back your way, and do something nice for yourself, even if it's just 3 breaths, right? Do some self-kindness, self-compassion, take care of yourselves through this process. And and thank you for coming to Ask the Midwife. It will happen again every Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Next week is Corey doing myths of midwifery and genetic screening. And she's super knowledgeable. She'll answer all kinds of questions for you anyway. And everything we did tonight was educational, not medical advice. And our office is the Midwifery Collective of Essex County. You can go to our webpage, or you can call our office if you want to come. In my program, I do expecting and connecting, so anybody can contact me who had a baby in Essex County, even if you had an obstetrician for your birth, and I will come and provide you with some in-home care and help you with breastfeeding. And I can even meet with you prenatally and chat a bit more about breastfeeding and answer some questions about, what are you worried about, or maybe even the birth or the pregnancy. I'm happy to spend time with you if that's helpful. We're here to help. So thank you so much for coming. That I wasn't by myself, because I was sure I was going to be all alone tonight and just doing this by myself. So I'm so excited that I had some people tonight. So thank you so much for the kindness of coming tonight. And I hope this was helpful. Oh, that's really sweet. Some people have said it was helpful and have thanked me. And by the way, sorry, I know I keep forgetting too. Our webpage, we have a wonderful student who redid our webpage. It's actually quite lovely. But we have a lot of videos on there too. There's lots of resources, but there's a lot of really nice videos that I like about breastfeeding, including a whole section on twins and multiples, if anybody's worried about that and has that. So you just need to go to www.midwiferycollective.ca, and that's us. Okay, and you'll find a lot of really useful information for you. Okay, thanks again. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Do something kind for yourself. Bye.